Hi, and welcome to our sixth video in this Proxmox series. So we've seen a lot with the GUI of Proxmox, and now it is time to actually start using the API that Proxmox offers to us. And we are going to be doing the token API authentication, just because it is a little bit more secure than using the password. Also, I don't have to expose the password that I'm using in the system this way. And it also lets you more granularly control the permissions. Now, I won't get too deep into the permissions today. We're going to generate an API token and actually uncheck the privilege separation. So it's going to be as if we are connecting as that user specifically, just through the API token instead. So let's go ahead and let's actually just get started here. So I've already connected into my Proxmox, as you can see here. The GUI is up and I'm on the data center node here. You could also we can see here it's Promox. I did a typo. I realized that earlier instead of naming it Proxmox. But in the center here, in the data center, we actually have a section called permissions. And then we have a section called API tokens. Now, what we're actually going to do is come into API token to create our token. But just to give you guys some visibility in case you guys want to play around with this, if you click on the permissions, this is where you would add specific permissions to your API token. So you would select the specific VM or the specific type of access that you want. Let's say I wanted to give my API token access to my Ubuntu clone, which is VM ID 100. I would click there, and then you would select a role that you would want to give it, and then you would select the API token that you have created. Just to give you guys a little bit of detail in case you guys want to try that out yourselves. But let's go ahead and let's click on the API tokens here, and we're going to click on add here, and we're going to select our user that we're going to be putting the token for. We're going to put it as root. And like I said, we're going to uncheck the privilege separation. So this way it's going to get the exact same privileges as our root user. Now, again, probably not something that you'd want to do in production. You're probably going to want to create a secondary user, give it the permissions that you want, especially if you're writing automation scripts, or let's say you're writing something to do the monitoring on your Proxmox. You're going to want to give it just the permissions that it really needs, whether it's like read or anything like that, or maybe you just want a script to create VMs, you would give it just those permissions. And we are going to create a token ID here. Now we're going to create the token ID. We're just going to name it testing here. Now, the token ID, usually this is where I would put a name like monitoring, creation, or VM creation. Kind of give it something that's a little bit kind of useful so you know what it's for. Also, there is a comment field to kind of give a little bit of details on what that API token is for. And you can also set it to expire at a certain date, which is awesome compared to using a user. Let's say your API token gets exposed. Well, at least this way you only have to remove the token and create a new one. You don't have to disable the user, recreate the user, and do all of that stuff. You would just be able to simply create a new token. So that is a lot of the advantages of a token. But enough of that. Let's go ahead and let's just click add the token here. Now, this is really where it's really important. You're not going to want to go ahead and just close out of this. You will want to copy this secret value here. So we're just going to click on that. And we're just going to open up our Visual Studio here. And let me just go to open. We're just going to open up a new folder here. We're going to call this one Proxmox YouTube here. And we're going to be starting from fresh here. And let's just hit save here. And we are going to go ahead and we're going to create a new script. And we're going to call this connect token.ps1. And we are just going to paste our secret in there for now. And what I also like to do, just because I don't like to have typos, is I like to take this token ID as well, because we're going to need that in just a few seconds. Now, one of the things here that I am doing is I am doing this through the clear text right now as well, but what we're actually going to do is we're going to create a CLI XML in just a second with this information. So it's going to help this just keep it a little bit more secure for you guys. All right, so we're just going to keep this at the top just so we have it. And what we're actually going to do first is we're going to create a variable here, and we're just going to call it creds, and we're just going to call it get credential here. Now this isn't super important for now. This is just me saving the credentials that we're then going to use in the header authorization, and we're just going to put a message here of enter the API token. So what we're going to do here is we are going to copy the secret here, and we're going to run this. And the user, we are going to put root at PAM exclamation mark testing here, which is that first part of the secret. And then the password, we are going to put that secret value here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do creds, and we're going to pipe that to export CLI XML, and we're going to give it a path here. We're just going to copy the path of my Proxmox YouTube folder here, and we are going to name that API token.xml, and we are going to run that. And then let's go ahead and we can just erase all of this now, and we can go ahead and we can just say API token equals import CLI XML. We're going to give it the path here of our CLI XML file. Paste that in there. And if we actually go ahead and we run this, and let's just go ahead and look at what our API token is equal. So we can see here we got our root at PAM exclamation mark testing here, and we have our secure string. So it is fully encrypted, so it is secure here. Now, of course, you can use the secret vault as well, but what we can actually do to get the actual token, we've seen this before. We get the get network credential and then password. And if you actually run this, you can actually see what your secret string was, which we're actually going to need for the authorization header. So now that we actually have our API token loaded into our script and not just written in plain text, which is going to be awesome. This way, if anyone opens your script, they are not going to know your secret and your API token. Of course, you can also do this with the username and password method of connecting to Proxmox. But I find that method is a little bit cumbersome because you have to set up a cookie, you have to set up a web session. This is a lot simpler. So let's go ahead and let's get started fully on that there. So the first variable we're going to create is going to be the Proxmox server. And what that we are going to do is we're going to put that to the IP address of our Proxmox server. So I have that as 192.168.50.142. And then the other thing that we're going to want to do is create our header here. So we're going to do header equals, and we're going to do that as a empty hash table. And then we're going to do header dot authorization equals, and this is where we are going to start using our API token. So we're going to do that as PVE API token, and we're going to put a space here, and then we're going to put our API token dot username equals, and we're going to do another variable wrapper. We're going to do our API token again, and this is where we're going to do the get network credential, open and close parentheses, password. So if we actually go ahead and we run these lines here, and then we just go ahead and we take a look at what our header is equal, we are going to see that we have our authorization, and we have PVE API token, and then we have our token ID, and then our token secret. All right, And then once we actually have both of those, we can go ahead and we can connect and actually interact with the API right away. We don't have to do any login or anything like that. That token lets us connect directly. Whereas if you're using the username and password, you're going to have to use your username and password, get a ticket, use that ticket to create a cookie, use that cookie to create a session. It's a lot more work and it's not as secure because you're exposing your user. So the API token, I definitely think is the way to go. And I think it is the Proxmox recommendation as well. Usually anything that you can do with an API token instead of actual user credentials is usually the best way to go for security. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to create our URI here. And what we're going to do first is we are actually going to query our Proxmox server to get the version of Proxmox that we are currently at. So let's go ahead and let's type in https:// and then this is where we're going to put our Proxmox server variable here in a variable wrapper. Make sure we put our colon here, 8006 or 8006 for the port. Then we're going to do /API2/JSON/version. Now you can do a base URI variable if you really wanted to as well. You'd probably stop your base at the just API2/JSON, and then you can always just add in slashes for any routes that you actually want to call. But let's just go ahead and let's try this out here. So once we have this, we can go ahead and we can create a variable called response, and we're going to make that equal invoke REST method. And our URI is going to be our URI that we have here. Our headers is going to be our header. And then our content type, we want to make sure to set this as application/JSON. Our method is going to be a get for this one. And what we want to make sure that we do, because right now we still have a self-assigned certificate on there, is just do the skip certificate check. Now, if you do have an actual domain name for your Proxmox, you have an appropriate certificate, you don't have to do this skip certificate check. But if you're like me right now in the home lab and you haven't set that up, you will need to do that skip certificate check. So what we can actually go ahead and do, so we can actually go ahead and run this entire code here. And now if we look at what is inside our response, we will actually see version, repo ID, and release. So if we actually just go in here, go on another line here and do response, what I like to do is always a .data for the responses, especially for Proxmox here. So let's go ahead and let's just scroll up a little bit. So here we actually get the version, the repo ID, and the release. So we can actually see that we are running at 8.4. Which is, if we look here as well, we should be able to see in the summary, I believe, or somewhere around here. Yeah, the help, we actually have a version 8.4. So we are getting the correct information here. All right, and let's go ahead and let's test out a few other API routes. And what we're actually going to do for this one is we will actually do a base URI here, just so you guys can actually see how that works out. And let's put that in there. So now we have our base URI. And now let's go URI equals base URI, or actually we need to put that in double quotes here. And then we're going to put a slash, and we are going to look at the nodes here. So we're going to get the list of all the nodes that we have in our Proxmox server. And then all we need to do is copy this response and response.data, because we are going to be using the exact same info here. And we can actually just go ahead and put that in there. And it says the host name could not be parsed. Give me one moment. We're just going to actually get that. And that is probably because I don't think I ran my base URI. You guys probably saw that before I did. So let's go ahead. Let's make sure that we actually run all of those lines here. There is our response data there. So we have our list of nodes here. So we can actually see our node that I, again, made that typo there and named it Proxmox. So what we can actually do here is we can do, let's do target node is equal response dot data dot node here. So if we actually just look at this, this will get us Proxmox. And now we have our target node, which is Proxmox. Perfect. So now we're going to do another URI here. And we're going to make that equal to, again, the base URI. And we're going to put this to slash nodes slash target node. And let's go ahead and let's see what this actually gives us. So if we, again, just copy the response and the response data here, and we can actually just go ahead and run that. This will give us all the different options that we actually have access to in this node. So we have certificates, we have DNS, we have firewall, we have the QEMU, which that is what we're about to go to next, which is our different type of VMs that we have. So let's go ahead and let's just update this URI here to slash QEMU. And we are going to run this here. And this will actually list us all of our virtual machines. So here, if we go all the way to the top, we can see that we have our Windows server and the status is actually stopped. We can see the maximum size of the disk in bytes here. So that's 34 or 30 some odd gigs. I think it's 34 gigs is what I set it to, or 32 gigs. I can't remember it 100%. You can see the VM ID as well. You can see the maximum memory, which is set to 4 gigs here. We can see the VM ID of 100, which is set to my Ubuntu clone. We can see that it is running. It's got 2 CPUs. It's currently barely using any of our CPU. And our max memory is set to 2 gigs. Our 101 VM ID is our Ubuntu 2404 best practice, which that one is currently stopped. And then we have our Ubuntu web, which is running as well. And that one has our ID of VM ID 103. So let's go ahead and let's take a deeper look at this Ubuntu clone, which is the VM ID of 100. But what we could do is if we did a where name like Ubuntu clone, we could have even done an equals here. So if we actually get this, so we actually just get our Ubuntu clone. What we can even do is do our VM equals that. And then what we can do now is we can do another URI and let's get the actual details of this VM. And that's where we're going to end it for today. And this way you guys can actually play around with the API routes, figure out more API routes on your own. And I'm going to be showing you guys some more next week. So let's go ahead and let's do again that base URI here. We're going to do nodes again. We're going to do the target node. QEMU. We are going to do a variable wrapper here. We're going to do VM dot, I believe it is called VM ID. And then we're going to do a slash here, status, and we are going to do current. All right, so if we actually go ahead and then just copy the response here and then do a response dot data. Now we actually just go ahead, we can actually select this entire thing and it's going to go ahead and roll through here. And if we look at the last response dot data, because I did get the data here, so let me just comment out this version response data because that's what we're going to see. So here is the current status of my Ubuntu web here. And actually, we're probably displaying some more response data. So let me just make sure that all of them are commented out here, just to make sure that our view that we get at the end is truly only the current status of our Ubuntu clone. So here we can see our current CPU usage, our maximum memory, our status is running. We actually get the balloon info as well. We get the agent, Proxmox support. We can actually tell what a little bit more details as well. We can see the NICs. The QEMU status is running. VM ID, how much memory is being used, the uptime, running QEMU 9.2, so you can see that version as well. So you can see a lot of different details here. Now, of course, there are a bunch more API routes that we haven't looked at. You can create VMs, you can start a VM, you can stop a VM. The options are endless, really. I'm going to try to focus on the ones that I would use the most. And that's why I figured out starting today was just showing you guys how to query the version, how to list the different nodes, how to list the different VMs, and how to get details on a specific VM. These are great things to actually get started with interacting with the API on your Proxmox and doing it all through the token authentication as well. If you guys have any specific questions on Proxmox or specific API routes that you guys would like to see me use, please let me know in the comment section down below. If you guys liked this video, be sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and make sure to hit that notification bell to be notified when that next video comes out. I will see you guys on the next video.